to the Minister for Veterans Affairs and Defence Material. Minister, will you tell the House what the government is doing to create a sustainable shipbuilding industry in Australia?
The Minister for Veterans Affairs and Defence Material.
Thanks, Mr Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Cowan for his question. And I know he's a passionate advocate for jobs in his electorate and, in particular, defence industry jobs in his electorate. Mr Speaker, the Turnbull government is securing Australian jobs and ensuring Australia's economic future by investing in defence. For the first time in our history, Australia will have a continuous shipbuilding plan delivered by the Turnbull government. The Turnbull government has now announced $90 billion of investment for Australia's Navy and our shipbuilding industry. This will result in more than 5,300 direct jobs, and there will be many more indirect jobs around the country when you remember the $1.6 billion investment in the Defence White Paper, which is all about encouraging Australian defence industry to take advantage of this investment. The Turnbull government has announced that Australia will build 21 new Pacific patrol boats to be built in Western Australia, 12 new offshore patrol vessels to be built in South Australia and Western Australia, 9 new future frigates to be built in Adelaide, and 12 new submarines to be built in Adelaide. This takes the number of vessels this government has commissioned to be built in Australia to 54. And as the Foreign Minister so beautifully articulated, this brings the shipbuilding scorecard, compared to Labor's 6 years in office, to 54-0. 54-0. Mr Speaker, it's starting to remind me that scoreline. It's starting to remind me that scoreline of the 1980 Grand Final. Now, the Leader of the Opposition mightn't remember it because I know he now barracks for Collingwood, but he was probably barracking for Sydney then. But it was an absolute shellacking. As a matter of fact, if this was a footy match now, those opposite would be filing out of the ground. As the member for Sturt said last week, we have made more decisions in the last 6 weeks, than Labor made in 6 years in office. 6 weeks compared to 6 years, and it's 54-0. For the first time in this country, we have a continuous shipbuilding plan in Australia. This will deliver security for Australian jobs, and it will mean a more secure Australia.